Sponsored by the Big 98, Nashville's #1 for new country and the home of the Bobby Bones Show.
We're so honored to have on the show Grammy Award-winning singer, incredible songwriter and actress, TV, movies, and of course, Broadway, Melissa Manchester. Melissa, thank you so much for joining us.
Good to be here.
You know, there's so many things to talk about with you, Melissa. I don't know what to touch on first, besides, you know, the tour for Funny Girl, you know, with Mrs. Bryce, that continues throughout this entire year.
Yes.
Plus, you got a new album that released in February. Which do you want to talk about first?
Anything. I'm celebrating my 50th year of my career. So releasing this new album, Review, sort of was a beautiful synchronicity, and that this first national tour in 60 years of Funny Girl showed up with the role of Rose Bryce, Fanny Bryce's mother, is just it's amazing that it showed up in this moment.
You know, it doesn't surprise me though, because I grew up with your songs, you know, over the years, and it's like, you know, once again, you know, I knew you from your solo work and everything and all the hit songs that you had over the years, but also, you know, even on Review, to where, you know, you've got Kenny Loggins on here with you that you co-wrote the song with.
Yes, Whenever I Call a Friend.
And you've got Dolly Parton.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I had reached out to I had tried reaching out to Kenny over the years, you know, because I wanted to do some kind of a definitive version of the song. And the timing was just never right. I mean, it's 45 years, but finally, I just made the track. I put on all the vocal parts and found my own imprint onto the song. Right. And, you know, he agreed, he loved it, and he was fantastic in the studio, and we made a great video. And then I reached out to Dolly, and she wanted to know where she could fit in, and I was thinking of a song that could become a duet that wasn't necessarily written as a duet. And I thought, man, Midnight Blue would be so tender. And I sent her my vocal performance and the track, of course, and she agreed, and she put on her vocal, and it was so magnificent that it sent me back into the studio to re-record my part, because I wanted to meet her emotionally. And she's just fantastic. We had her for 4 hours to do the video, and she's truly a queen. She is so beloved.
Well, as are you, because I got to bring this up with that song also. You had already had a hit with that song years ago.
Yes.
And now you've come back out with it with Dolly, and the pairing of both your vocals is just magic.
Thank you. Yeah, it's that's the whole point of Review. I mean, all of these songs, except for the one that I'd never recorded before, which was Confide in Me.
Right.
All of the songs had been charted, but I wanted to, you know, when you do songs over so many decades, and these are gifts to me. Either I co-wrote them or they were gifted by magnificent songwriting friends. You know, as you grow, the songs grow with you, what you invest in them from your life experience. And certain harmonic tweaks were showing up. And so I really wanted to revisit them. And one of the things that I've learned on stage is, of course, after so many decades, is no song ends with a fade on stage. They all end. And so no song on this album ends with a fade. They all end. So if you're in your kitchen drying your dishes and you feel compelled to applaud, go ahead.
Well, you know what? I got to bring it to you also, Melissa, to me, you know, these songs, you know, so many incredible songs on this album, but I think it's really going to find a new audience with a lot of people that didn't know your earlier catalog even.
Yes, that would be incredible. I mean, that would be sensational, really.
You know, one of the songs of yours that always struck me too, that obviously did so well on the charts, you know, Don't Cry Out Loud. You did. I think you hit, you know, what, number 10 with that one. It's like, but so many of those songs to where it's like, you were kind of everywhere over the years and continue to be, like we talked about before we started the interview now, with what you're doing, you know, on Broadway and on tour with Funny Girl. Also, isn't your play launching this fall as well?
Yes, Sweet Potato Queens is running in St. Louis at the New Line Theater. I wrote the score, and Nashville Songwriting Hall of Famer Sharon Vaughn wrote the lyrics, and Tony Award winner Rupert Holmes wrote the book. It's hysterically funny.
I think it's amazing because it seems to me like even though you're, at your 50th year of celebrating making music, it seems like you're busier than ever with all of these new projects you have going.
Well, they're all beautiful adventures. And when I'm inspired to stay attached to a project, because all of these projects take enormous commitment because they take a
Right.
long time to do. I mean,
Certainly.
for instance, Review the album, we started recording it before the pandemic. And then the fit of celebrating my 50th year with the issue of the album just
Right.
made sense. We worked on Sweet Potato Queens for a really long time and still until it got solidified, and we had done the premiere of it at the Hobby Center in Houston in 2017. But
Mhm.
again, with COVID, everything shut down. But
Right.
this will be our 6th production of Sweet Potato Queens in St. Louis, so that's pretty exciting.
How amazing. I want to bring up too, some of our viewers may not realize this, but your father also, a great musician in his own right as a bassoonist, and your mother, being, ahead of her time, with clothing and
Yeah,
everything.
she was a pioneer in the fashion industry.
Exactly. So you really get all of this creative,
Yes.
back, DNA naturally.
Yes, it absolutely true. As I like to say, my sister and I were raised in a very festive version of normal. But also we were raised, in the Bronx and Manhattan, and
Hmm.
so that surroundings was so vibrant and so filled with adventures. I was when I was 16, I was an usherette at the Vivian Beaumont Theater at Lincoln Center. I was a jingle singer and a staff writer by the time I was 17. I parked cars for a theater company. They didn't ask whether I knew how to drive. I didn't know how to drive. And I was a gopher the first season of Sesame Street when I was 17. I mean, it was just in the neighborhood. It was
Right.
wild.
I mean, and it's not lost on me also that when you were studying songwriting and you've had so many artists that have recorded your songs as well, besides the songs you've recorded also, but you were at studying for it with Paul Simon.
I was so blessed. It was at New York University. I had gone there for 1 year, and two dear friends of mine had noticed, there was no social media, there were no phones, no nothing. There was a
Hmm.
scrap of paper on the bulletin board that said songwriting and record production taught by Paul Simon. And we thought, Paul Simon, Bridge Over Troubled Waters is #1 all over the world. What is he doing on East 7th Street? But indeed, he came in for 6 months. We studied with him for several hours once a week. The assignment was very simple: come in with an idea or a verse or a title, including him. And he would talk about the songwriting process for himself. And it was just, and it's so much when I teach, so much of what I've learned, I've
Hmm.
pay forward with what he taught me.
Well, and I was going to bring up too, Melissa, to where you're an adjunct professor also now sharing your wealth of knowledge.
Yes, I have been at USC Thornton School of
Right.
Music, and I teach master classes wherever I'm invited. Usually, if I'm performing on a university theater, adjacent to their campus, I'm invited to teach. But yes, it's remarkable to teach. I did not see this on my horizon. I was invited to teach at USC, and the thing that struck me most, besides learning more than I think I teach, is that I remember the beginning of my artistic journey. So
Mhm.
I'm teaching kids who were basically the same age as I was when I started. And so what they're going through, man, my heart goes out to them. And some things have never changed, some things are very different.
Well, and I've got to ask you too, Melissa. It's like, obviously, you've toured, sung with so many people and so many incredible friends that are also large stars like yourself. How did you become a harlot?
Uh, I was um, I was Barry Manilow and I were both jingle singers, and
Right.
that's how I met
Because you
him.
guys are still close friends.
Oh yes, he and Bette and I are still close, and he was the new music director for Bette Midler, and they were playing at a club on the Upper West Side of Manhattan called the Continental Baths, and I was playing diagonally across the street in a club called the Focus. So Barry brought Bette to see me on their off night, and I had just seen her on one of her first performances on the Johnny Carson show, and she was, she tore the place up. And so she came to see my set, and then when it was over, I went over to their table, and I was we were all so excited for each other, because in those days before social media and that kind of connection, you just sort of ran in a pack and listened for who got a meeting with whom and who got a contract with whom and all that.
All right.
And yeah, and so I said to Beth, we're all so excited for you. What are you doing next? And she said, well, I'm getting ready for my first Carnegie Hall concert. And I said to her, wow, are you going to have any background singers? And she said to me, I don't know. Would you like to sing in back of me? And I thought to myself, well, actually, I'd like to sing instead of you. But in the meantime, so Manilow and I created the Harlettes, and I was the toots in the middle. I worked for her for 6 months. Gail Cantor and the late Merle Miller were the other two.
How amazing. I love these kind of stories because I know how you stayed intertwined with so many of these artists. Also, I read a little story, and I don't know if you could fill us in a little bit, on how the song "Feeling for You" came about. Because, it's
Yeah.
and I just didn't know if this was true or,
Yes, this was absolutely true. Yes, I was down in the Delta, the Mississippi Delta. I was doing some research for when we were putting Sweet Potato Queens together, just to get a feeling of the flavor of the music and all that. And we went to a juke joint, and I was just sitting there listening to the great playing, and this guy was approaching me, and I could tell that he was so drunk. He was seeing 3 of me and deciding which one he liked the best. And so he finally leaned into me and he said, are you married? And I said at the time, yes, very. And he said, oh, that's too bad because I got a feeling for you. And I thought to myself, I can write that song. And so I did. And I wrote it with Sarah Nimitz, and the great Kev Mo produced it.
Oh my gosh. Because I mean, it's like when I read that, it's like it's one of those things to where you took what a lot of people, a moment that they would have let pass by,
That's
and
right.
you turned it into an incredible song.
Yes, well, I'm very big on eavesdropping, by the way, to be inspired, not just what people say to me directly, but if I'm in a coffee shop and there's a booth behind me and I hear something going on, because you never know what will not only spark you, but
Right.
insist on being expressed. And for me, what that means is a song. So, and when I get sparked by something, somebody rightly described songwriting as peeling an onion from the inside out. You get the idea and you don't know if it's the title or something in the middle of a second verse or who would say it. You just have to keep being the detective and peeling it away until you create kind of a singing monologue for yourself.
Wow. I'll tell you what, the next time you come through town, if you give a master's class, I'm going to sign up early, okay, before the seats are all gone. Because I want to attend and learn from you, as I'm sure so many people do. I had to ask you also, with Review out now, and obviously so many great songs, and your voice sounds amazing as always. Will it come out on vinyl?
A lot of people have asked me that. We shall see, because vinyl has made a spectacular comeback. And of course, those who are much younger than I think that they have discovered fire and the wheel with vinyl, which is fine because there's nothing like that ambient sound. You put the needle down and it's just unbelievable. I shall see, because it's a large production to create it and then card it for wherever I am, because after my performances I go out and sign things but anyway, we'll see. It's a fair question. Thank you.
I think it'll be a great memento, because I know listening to all of your music earlier in the years, I always enjoyed having the vinyls, that your albums came out on.
Absolutely.
And just not only the better sound quality to me, but also to where I could see all the musicians involved,
That's
the songwriters,
That's
and
exactly
the
right. That's exactly right. When we used to, I started in such a long time ago, the landscape of the music industry was entirely different. And the release of an album was an event because of the very things that you just said. Looking at the liner notes, looking at the sequence, people are really into that. And so we shall see.
Well, and I think especially with the great guests and friends that you have on this album too, Melissa, to where people are, I think it's, once again, people that maybe didn't realize some of your songs or know some of the things that you've done in the past. You're going to find a new audience with those also.
Yes, indeed. Yes. Well, that will be hello, are you listening, God?
Well, and also I was looking at the website, Melissa, and the cast that you have with you, doing Funny Girls. Like, what
Oh,
a
yes.
cast.
Yes, yes, it's just incredible. I auditioned for this role because it had, it came back to Broadway after so many years. I was actually approached in the early 80s by the composer Jules Stein to play Fanny Brice, and it was just too soon after Barbara Streisand had created that role. Her aura was still in the air, you know what I mean? And I
Right.
was really busy, I was a young mom and I was touring so much.
Certainly.
And it as it turned out, this turned out to be the perfect fit because I have brought so much of my life experience to the role of Rose Brice, Fanny Brice's mother. And the way the book is written, the tonality of the dialogue sounds like all of the women I was raised with, all my aunts, my mother, my grandmother,
Right.
it's beautiful. And of course, the audiences are just in love with this show. The score is fantastic. I mean, when people hear the song People being sung within the context of the show, it's just like a revelation, and Don't Rain on My Parade. And of course, listening to this spectacular overture, it's one of the great overtures in all musical theater, and being part of this happy, beautiful company. It's just, and really, in context being everything in this
Right.
moment, particularly when you see young teenagers and even kids coming to see this show, because this is real family fare, you are seeing the triumph of her spirit.
Right.
And she overcomes so much, and it's beautiful. And her mother, Rose, my character, is there to love her through it.
Wow. And to me now, with the entire cast on Funny Girl, it's like, you're perfect for this role. It seems like you waited until the right time. Although also then you've got a new album out, you've got
Yes.
a tour, and I'm sure you're already working on new songs and new music again for the
Yes.
next things.
Yes, I am. Yes, that's how life shows up for me. I navigate it through writing songs, and so I'm very excited.
Well, I think it's amazing. Well, I know our viewers will want to come see you live with Funny Girl, and also to see you in concert with this new music, and certainly all of your past hits that you've had, Melissa. Where should our viewers go to find out everything Melissa Manchester?
Go on Facebook and all of the platforms, melissamanchester.com, all of my schedules and touring information and recording releases and all kinds of interesting stuff and photos. It's all there.
Well, I'll tell you what, I've got a feeling, Melissa, that this album is definitely going to find some hits, whether it be through streaming, radio, or whatever. The songs sound great. And I think the guests that you featured along with you were just spot on, and your voice has never sounded better. So congratulations, with everything you've got going with Funny Girl and also with Review. Melissa Manchester, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Sponsored by the Big 98, Nashville's #1 for new country and the home of the Bobby Bones Show.